This panel, if you're in the right room, is called Dude Who's Monetizing My Fans' Content. We hope to have an interesting conversation about the relationship between social media platforms and the sports content holders and rights people. And just trying to get you guys to think a little bit differently about how that relationship works and how some of our panel up here deals with that, and just hopefully have some different perspective than probably previous. So with that, I just want to introduce our panel. These are some great friends of mine that I've had over the years working in this industry, so it's pretty fun to be up here talking to them. Go ahead, start from Kirsten.
Hi everybody, my name's Kirsten Corio. I'm currently Managing Director of Ticket Sales and Digital Strategy for the USTA, that's the United States Tennis Association, probably better known as the operator and producer of the US Open that takes place annually every year in New York. I've been there almost a year, and prior to that spent 15 years at the NBA, mostly in the team marketing and business operations group, working with teams, which is how I got to know Dwayne in the first place, and made a lot of great friends along the way here. So I'll bring that experience to bear here too in our discussion.
Hi everybody, my name is Scott Carlos. I'm the Senior Vice President of Digital Media for Learfield. For those unfamiliar with Learfield, we are the largest collegiate-focused sports multimedia rights holding company. We represent the multimedia rights and sponsorships for 125 marquee collegiate athletic programs. I've been there for about a year. We are headquartered in Dallas with offices obviously in campuses across the country and representing some of the most prominent and prodigious universities in the land, including Alabama, North Carolina, Stanford, Cal, Penn State, just to name a few. Prior to that, I was at AEG for 5 years, where I was the Vice President of Digital Media, Marketing, and Social Media for AEG, the Global Partnerships team, overseeing sponsorships and digital programs and creating interactive experiences. As we like to say, we didn't just want to be the best live events company in the world, we wanted to be the best experiential company. And that's where I had the pleasure and privilege of working with Dwayne when he was overseeing digital for AEG Sports. And before that, I was working in the industry formerly known as magazines, which you want to talk about disruption. That it's been quite disrupted. I was my last gig at Condé Nast was I was the associate publisher, the VP of marketing for GQ, known as Gentleman's Quarterly. Thanks.
That's why you dress so well. You do, let everyone know.
Incidentally, Dwayne was like, "We got to wear sport coats. We got to wear sport coats." So I jammed my sport coat into my bag, and look what Dwayne's wearing.
Anna, you're up.
All right, so my name is Anna Hu. I'm co-founder of a company called Brizi. You may or may not have heard of us, but these guys on this panel have, engaged with us really early in the technology that we're building. We've had a chance to either work closely together or get to know each other really well. And what we do is we're trying to help engage the 99% of fans outside the arena by using the voice of the 1% of fans that's inside your arena.
Great. And I'm Dwayne Hankins, Chief Marketing Officer at the Portland Trailblazers. Have been there for about 4 years, oversee elements of broadcast, social media, digital, retail, game operations, so all of our fan experience touch points. Before that was with AEG, with Scott Carlos. We did a lot of digital projects together, including the LA Kings, LA Galaxy, and some other things there. And then before that, with the Minnesota Wild for 6 years. So I've kind of bounced all over the place. We own the content, right? So we're the place where the game happens or the event happens. And then there's this interesting relationship about when fans film their content inside the venue, or when there's geo filters, for instance. How does that relationship work? And you guys obviously have great perspective. Anna, with a product that sort of services that fan, Scott out on the collegiate side, and then Kirsten on the event side with the U.S. Open. So just talk a little bit about how that piece works, if you would.
Yeah, and it's an excellent question, especially since Snap now went public and is valued about $30 billion, and you got every single millennial using Snapchat and in love with the platform, as we all are. I think the key is now is from a sports property perspective is, one, how do we work with Snap to really understand the various type of platforms, from the filters to the Bitmojis to the lenses, and coming up with the right sort of monetization solutions. And I think what's really interesting is that, and we were talking about this earlier, is just the contracts that we have with the multimedia rights. Is a lot of these contracts were built, constructed 5-10 years ago, right? Well, a lot of things we couldn't anticipate, including air rights. and geo-filters and the monetization of those air rights. It's a whole new world. But the opportunities in terms of developing those social media platforms, one is really understanding and working closely, whether it's Facebook or Facebook Live and whatever the newest sort of kind of advent of that medium is, from Twitter to YouTube, and you see that YouTube's kind of like continuing to develop and branch out and now wants to be an OTT player, is how do we develop these right solutions that are beneficial for our fans, and equally important, how do we find the right sort of monetization opportunities so we kind of don't have our pants down and really not have a long-term strategy or solution to come up with programs that really are designed for the modern fan and creating this sort of millennial sort of fan experience in which they want to capture, they want to create, they want to feel that they're part of the sort of experience, and most importantly, they want to share. And the only way you're going to create shareable experiences is if you create content that's actually compelling. So it's incumbent on all of us in this room and at this table, when we're coming up with content, is to make sure that content makes sense, that it's worthwhile, that it's something of appealing, as opposed to just cross-pollinating the same content, repurposing it from one channel to the next, and coming up with something crappy. So when we talk about Snap, it's what really is going to resonate, what's going to be impactful, how are they going to be good partners with us, and then coming up with the right sort of solutions that are beneficial for all of our key constituencies. And those key constituencies are the asset holder, the school, the sports team, the partner that wants to invest and has already invested a sizable amount of money in support of that sports team or property or school or university, and finally the fans. Does the fan really care about the type of content that you're creating, and do they want to share it? And once they're sharing it, that partner and everyone basically wins, because that partner basically plays the heroes of those unbelievable experiences that you just basically extended.
When you talk about like these existing rights holder contracts that we have that guarantee they own the live rights, they own the video rights, et cetera, that's true for all of us, for every sports property, right? And when we start thinking about, for example, the live story product that's been around for a long time with Snapchat, and we've had a pre-existing arrangement with them for a few years now where we create live stories around our opening day, around our women's final, our men's final, and we enable our sponsors to have a presence there and a rev share with Snap on that. But we're a huge annual global property, and when I think about that through the lens of the teams that I used to work with, specifically the small market teams, they may not have as much negotiation leverage with a company like Snap. That becomes really difficult to navigate and difficult to bring value to your partners. And in that sense too, I think you're left with finding ways to now make that work for your audience, for your partners, how to keep your partners protected. And it's funny, we're 3 property people up here and a technology company, but I think Anna's company fits squarely in here, and we've all had the benefit of using it, but it gives some control back to the rights holder and back to the rights holder's ability to deliver value to their fans that are at the event, but also at the same time deliver value to the partners that we choose to work with as a rights holder. And so if you haven't yet seen Brizi, we used it as the US Open fan cam at the US Open, and it enabled anyone in the arena to remotely control a camera to take what we called the ultimate selfie and share it out. And it also enabled our partners to then create these filters and lenses over your photo or around your photo that was also shared out when you shared it. So it sort of gave that sort of Snapchatty right back to the property rights owner and their ability to bring value to partners and fans. So, and I'm giving you a real softball here to talk about your company, but it's true. Like, we've used it, we've tested, tried, but it does sort of solve for the issue of the smaller market property or product or team that may not be able to capture the attention at the corporate level of a Snapchat.
The question was, can brands or will brands go straight to social to do what they got to do to reach their audiences? And I think about this in a different way. I think they're already doing so, but in the form of traffic. So when you're a fan sitting in the stadium, sitting in your stadium, and there's no play on field, something's paused, they're immediately looking down at their mobile devices. They're scrolling through their Instagram feed. They're looking at now what's going on. So actually, your fan is being monetized right there and then by the social media platforms who are counting that traffic, of the time that they're spending on those platforms versus being entertained inside the arena. And that's why, it comes back to fan experience. It's so mightily important.
Scott, do you have a thought on that? You look confounded.
I don't understand the question. Can you break it down for me a little bit? Because, I mean, I don't understand how you could do that without necessarily involving the actual property, which belong.
Well, how do we prevent the ambush from being something that's
I mean, walk
effective.
around this event. How many brands are trying to associate with Southwest who don't have the association, right?
Right. Well, but then again, it's, I think content is king, right? And it's also the IP and the rights and the legalities around the permissions that you have to leverage that content. Is that level of expertise, and is the level of content that you have that basically makes it valuable. I don't understand how you can try to monetize or commercialize something that doesn't necessarily belong to you around content that is not within your rights or purviews. I mean, it's one thing to kind of associate it with, but on the periphery, but a direct sort of lift of the content that's created by the intellectual property holder seems to be a sort of major conflict of permissions and rights.
Agreed.
Yeah, well,
Is there a
I
but
want
there?
to let Anna go. She has a thought there. I don't want to
Okay.
interject.
no, and that's why this panel's here today, right? We really have to debate on where the future of content sponsorships is going, because I mean social's got the audiences. We can't deny that, right? Dwayne brings up a great point in kind of summarizing this panel, which is which one needs the other more? Is it social needs sports content, or sports needs social as a platform to reach the audiences they need to reach? So I think it's about strategic partnerships and using tools and technologies that are able to protect both parties' interests.
So Damian Lillard makes a last-second shot. We can post that on Facebook natively and get 10 million views. We can post that on our website where we're monetizing it with pre-roll and get 10,000 views. And so we have this come up every single time. We're past the point where it's a debate in our office. I mean, if we have a great highlight, we're gonna post it on Facebook. We deal with the partnership and the sponsorship repercussions of that later. So, but I mean, that's the decision that we make every day. As well, it's better on Facebook because it's going to get more reach, and we believe somehow magically that more reach, more people seeing this means more ticket sales later. And so that's just kind of the question. Is again, we face that sort of every day, and you guys must obviously in your worlds, right?
Yeah, it's a tough balance all the time between the motivation to build audience and engaged audience, and the motivation to protect your content partnerships and the value that they are, quite frankly, without them, I don't know where we are. But it's a tightrope we all walk. But I'm of the mind that if we have an ability to bring great content to fans that may be casual fans, or that may be people that were doing something else that day and didn't realize that there was a match happening or a game happening, and we can remind them and they can tune in, that's more valuable than trying to protect at all costs the value to us of somebody watching that on one of our own platforms versus on one of the social platforms. I think that ship sailed long ago.
It has, but I think we see this all the time. So we had our TV rights agreement came up last year, and we have a very challenged situation in Portland. Our games are not available on DirecTV. They're not available on Dish Network. Our fans go nuts that they only are available on. Well, they were only available if you had Comcast cable on our Comcast Sports Network. It was a big problem for a long time. Now they've come around, and they're on the PlayStation View. They're going to be on the new YouTube TV platform that they're rolling out, but it allowed us to have really good conversations last summer with some different types of partners, non-traditional partners. We talked to Amazon. There was a nice Northwest connection there. We talked to Facebook. We talked to YouTube. We talked to those kinds of different types of companies, and we're trying to explain to them that our rights are worth what TV rights are worth. And then on the flip side, there are teams and leagues and places putting preseason games on Facebook Live for nothing. They're just doing it because they think it's great for their fans, which is great for your fans, but it's also, you're giving away the content piece for free. And so there just probably needs to be a conversation around,
Dwayne, did any of those platforms mention that kind of behavior?
Yes, they did. Absolutely.
Of giving it away for free?
Yeah, absolutely.
And why should I pay for it?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
and you're trying to get to a point of saying, well, it's worth this, and it's a challenge for them when they get all of our content, all of our highlights, everything that is great about our sports, and it's the star content. Just like sports is the star content of TV, and that's the reason the cable bundle still exists. I would argue that sports is also the star content in your social feed, right? So it's an interesting debate that we have.
Yeah, there's a couple different issues at play, right? One is the socialization of that experience. I mean, the whole reason that people, I mean, the beauty about sports is just the passion it unlocks. And, you know, it crosses generations. You think about college football, you think about families, you think about driving in your car with your dad. I mean, even if we didn't have the greatest relationship, the thing we could always go back to is sports. The beauty of social is that you can basically, there's so many people like that, there's very few things in your life that have just that level of sort of authentic, genuine passion that is just so community-based that you want to, you know, Aristotle always said, humans are social animals, and the ability to now have those platforms and those connections to create those communities with like-minded people and allow fans to be invited to the party and share that content and that experience is unbelievable. How do you bring advertisers, how do you bring sponsors into those experiences to create extended sort of holistic sort of consumable opportunities? That's one piece. The second thing you're talking about when it comes to Amazon and YouTube is really about content distribution and rights. Now, because of broadcast, especially whether it's, you know, college football or it's the NBA or it's MLB BAM, it's, well, what do we have access to? And then, of course, it's, well, what can we do? What can we do beyond it? And is it sort of the hard knocks type of behind-the-scenes sort of exclusivity? Look, if you're a fan of a team, of a school, you want to consume that content any way imaginable. So working with your, you know, with your product creators, working with your programmers to come up with those opportunities that really brings people deeper into that experience, unlocks things that they never had access to before, is really where that enriching sort of experience is. And by the way, partners want that touch. They want that deeper integration. They feel like they want to move beyond the marks and the logos and just seen their name on the side of a building. They want to feel like they're creating deeper emotional connections. And if they can be the author of those deeper emotional connections around that community, around social, well, that's the holy grail. So, I mean, that's how we need to think about it, and just don't fall in love or be curious that, oh, I got to be on Snapchat, I got to be on Facebook. Work with the teams, work with your creators, your production people, people who oversee the content to make sure that you have the right resources and the right teams in place and creating the best form of content, and then basically work to kind of identify those things that can be sold, and hate to use this term, authentically, that really drives that level of sort of passion play that consumers and fans want.
And you know, this speaks to a lot about the type of emotions that's evoked in some of the fan content that we see being produced. So not only is the affinity of that sponsoring brand attached to the sports property and everything, you know, the Trailblazer stands for in that community, but also when you're scrolling down your Facebook feed and you see this person that you used to go to high school with taking a photo inside Moda Center and having that brand associated with somebody you know personally, that affinity raises, from some research, it's up to 7 times the effectiveness of that branding, because it goes back to authenticity, because it's somebody you know and you trust.
Who needs the other more? Social media or sports? You talked about that stat, even though it was a sponsored study.
It wasn't sponsored. It wasn't sponsored.
But I mean, who you know, brought this up before when I said I think sports is at an inflection point with social media. So who needs the other more?
What do you think, Dwayne?
Who do I think?
What do you think?
I think that if we in sports decided, you know, we're going to take a stance as all sports to not be on social media, we would be irrelevant in a week. That's what I think.
That we would be irrelevant?
We would be irrelevant.
Oh, wow.
I think if you don't see it on your news feed or somewhere pop up, people will just forget about it. That's my fear, yeah.
I think social has no particular reason to reprioritize their objectives in terms of how they want to grow their user base and their content strategy. Sports being what it is, but social, again, has that traffic, and I think the only way that, again, the two industries come together and work together is through very authentic insertion of great content and great stories and great conversation, which is what social's great for.
It's an intrinsic relationship, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, sports and sports affinity is all about social. It's about sharing that sort of unique sort of opinion you have and having an audience to share with like-minded sort of, and also looking for those sort of counterpoints and counterpoints. I mean, that's the awesomeness of sports and arguably music as well, which are probably, you know, all of our two favorite passion points that we all have a unique opinion about. And to be able to socialize that point of view and engage and get different access points to it is what makes social and sports so synergistic and so symbiotic. It's hard to say what needs each other more. You could argue that social probably needs it less because there's still other things that people are going to want to socialize about. But sports is still going to continue. It's just like you said, it's going to probably be a little less relevant the way people kind of consume and share content today. It's about sharing those experiences. It's about the ego. It's about the FOMO and YOLO moments. I mean, it is.
Yep.
I mean, and putting a little hashtag to it and be able to capture and say I was there. And from a brand partnership is that's what you want to be associated with. You just don't want to activate on marks and logos. You want to activate on those experiences and those shareable experiences. And one more stat that I love, and it's probably you need to kind of shake the mothballs off her at this point, but Nielsen did a study and it said that 91% of consumers trust advertising when it's recommended by a friend that was shared to them. And the most authentic and trustworthy information and advertising that you see is advertising that is shared by your friends and peers. And from a brand perspective and from a media perspective and a property perspective, that's enormously important when we're developing these sort of, campaigns and solutions on, for monetization around sponsorships.
Moving to in-venue content opportunities, so, and obviously your company does this, but are teams, leagues, stadiums thinking about how they monetize their in-venue content specifically for social? Are they doing a good job of this? And what do you think they could do better?
I think they're not doing a good job at this.
I thought you might have that opinion.
Yeah, well, I think with every industry, when technology comes along and enables those organizations to have different channels of distribution, to rethink the strategy that they're using to package their different sponsorship packages. It takes time, right? Whereas where most sponsorship sales teams are still very used to selling off a rate card. I mean, it's hard to admit, but it's true. And those of us in digital and on the digital team, has that, we've got that tension with those two departments. And again, I urge, that's the only way that monetization strategies are going to play fair to us in the next decade or so. Whoever says that broadcast content rights are going to stay afloat in the way that they are today is just, they've got their blinders on, right?
Absolutely, especially when it comes to that younger Gen Y, Gen Z audience.
They don't pay for.
They don't. Cord cutting is not a term for them. It's just they don't even know what that is. There never was a cord to cut. So yes, with both the things you said around the experience and memories and the ability to tell people that you're there, but we need to do a better job of bringing that experience more to life across the social platforms. People already do it for us, but how do we as the property owners do it in a way that's more cohesive, that's more monetized? This is our daily challenge.
Yeah.